If Kansas City had the Browns defense from last year, they'd be Super Bowl champs.
Right, and the Browns didn't have a great defense last year.
No, they were awful, but what they did do was take the ball away.
They took the ball away.
Yes.
I am a menace. Keep me a rage, I like tennis. I'm with this shit like I'm Dennis. I started this, I'm a business. Be hating, trying to blemish my image. He want the smoke, 2 to 3K with the scope. Extend they clip long as a rope. We rob his nose, till like he had him a cold. I knew the boy was a pull up with the gang. You know that we buying it. What is your setting? What is you claiming? I am a beast.
Listen, I'm as bullish on the Cleveland Browns this year as anybody. I love what that organization did in terms of maintaining some continuity with the offensive system, elevating Freddie Kitchens from the OC to the head coach, and then what they did on the defensive side of the ball. I mean, that was an area of concern. They were the 30th ranked defense last year. They needed to get better. They did upgrade in personnel. They brought in Sheldon Richardson, traded for Olivier Vernon. They drafted Greedy Williams in the second round. So they're putting some pieces on that side of the ball. But, I mean, I can't say that Baker Mayfield is set up to have more success than the quarterback that put his team in the AFC Championship last year. I mean, when you're talking about being in the Final Four at the end of an NFL season, and then the cast of characters coming back, the NFL not suspending Tyreek Hill, being able to have him, and then what the Chiefs did on the defensive side of the ball, we're making the move to get Frank Clark and signing Tyrann Mathieu in free agency, not to mention drafting a Virginia guy, Juan Thornhill, to pair with him in the back end. Like, I just really like exactly where this Kansas City Chiefs team is. And so I have to say that Pat Mahomes is going to pick up where he's left off. Now, maybe not the 50 touchdown passes, but in terms of the wins and positioning for his team in the postseason, I think the Kansas City Chiefs are going to be right back there and again in the mix in the AFC, contending for a title.
Yeah, I don't, since 98, 99, Peyton Manning repeated as MVP of the league.
So more recently than that, maybe 08, 09.
Oh, 08, 09.
Yep.
But since then, no one's repeated. We have seen MVP. There'll be some, especially quarterback. When you have that type of season, we have seen some correction, typically 10 or 15%. Patty Mahomes, what I'm worried about this year is if they try to throw the ball deep down the field, is the offensive line as good as it was last year? Because you can only do so much play action. And if you're going to throw the ball deep down the field, which they were the best in the league at, you have to hold the ball longer for that. That's one concern. Last year, 10 times, either the defenders had their hands on the ball or someone knocked the ball out of the defender's hand. Those were 10 potential interceptions for Patty Mahomes. So that's a correction that's going to be made. You know the league is going to change some things. After what New England did to them in the AFC Championship, they'll try to duplicate some of those things. Will they be able to accomplish it? Some teams will be successful. So we expect them to come back to the pack. Now, what they have going on in Cleveland, I believe as long as they protect the quarterback and people look at the head coach and be like, wow, man, he played quarterback at Alabama. Well, but he used to be an offensive line coach. So if you watched them last year, when they changed the season around, went to Baker, they started running the ball. So I believe they're going to protect them. I believe that the weapons, man, you can't split. Do I want Cleveland's weapons or do I want Kansas City? It's because the running backs, when they get Kareem Hunt. So what does it boil down to? Confidence. I believe both of these guys will go forward. I believe they will be number 1 and 2 in the MVP. Aaron Rodgers will have something to say about it. But the NFL will come back. And if Kansas City's defense don't get better, it's going to hurt their offense.
100%.
If Kansas City had the Browns defense from last year, they'd be Super Bowl champs.
Right, and the Browns didn't have a great defense last year.
No, they were awful, but what they did do was take the ball away.
They took the ball away,
Yes.
and the Chiefs' defense was dead last in almost every major category. They particularly on the road, they were really unspeakably bad. So first of all, whomever's more set up for success this season, big picture-wise, I do believe, and this is going to sound like a big statement, this is going to be this generation's Manning Brady. Two guys in the same conference who are the two best quarterbacks in football for a long time. Maybe that doesn't start this year with them being the two best quarterbacks in football, even though Mahomes was last season. I think that's what we're seeing here. I think with Baker and the Browns and Patty Mahomes and the Chiefs, those are, you might say, those organizations. Man, the Colts and Patriots weren't some great organizations historically, or at least in recent NFL history, prior to Manning and Brady becoming Manning and Brady. So I think that's what we're in store for over the next decade plus. The reason that I think you can make a strong argument for the Browns in this is because to me, there are fewer question marks on the defense. If the skill position spots are close, and the offensive line is close, and if the quarterbacks are even kind of close, and Baker, we saw the second half of last year was really good, while Mahomes was sensational the whole year. To me, the Browns have more known quantities on defense. The Chiefs did upgrade getting Frank Clark, but they lost Justin Houston and Dee Ford. They did bring in Tyrann Mathieu, but that was the worst secondary in the NFL last year. And those corners are not, to me, much better than they were last season, and they got torched all year. The Browns have studs at every level of the defense. They have a shutdown corner. They have two good safeties, and I think they are in the argument for the most imposing defensive line in football. Those, to me, are more known quantities than what the Chiefs have defensively. So if you're of the belief that a quarterback's best friend can be his defense, creating turnovers, giving him short fields, then the Browns could be, and Baker, in better position than the reigning MVP, Patrick Mahomes.
Brett Favre went on to say the thing that makes these two separate from other quarterbacks is they have the most incredible football sixth sense. When you're a quarterback, how is that important to the game? Why is that the one intangible that you look for?
Well, I think it's important to have a feel for the game. Anytime you start talking about players that have played at the highest level, like Chris Carter being in the Hall of Fame, I think you have that intangible. You have a feel for it, and you know the moments when to take chances, but you also know the moments when to pull back. And I think Pat Mahomes and Baker Mayfield both have that quality trait. Now, when I look at the teams, and I'm talking about when you look at everything around the roster, not just talking about the guys that are in the locker room, the Cleveland Browns, to me, you have to be a little bit concerned with the coaching staff and inexperience. Freddie Kitchens has never been a head coach at this level. Andy Reid has been a head coach for 20-plus years. So, I mean, you have to give the advantage to him, and being able to set the agenda for his team, to be able to understand his personnel and how to take advantage of the matchups week in and week out. I think you have to give that edge to the Kansas City Chiefs. The one thing that concerns me with the Cleveland Browns, even though they have a ton of talent, they got a lot of strong personalities in that building, and it's a relatively young core of players. Baker Mayfield, David Njoku, Denzel Ward, Larry Ogunjobi, all those guys are under 25. So, I mean, there is a certain learning curve that comes along with trying to win at this level, and then you throw into the fact that you have a first-year head coach. I mean, there is going to be some challenges in Cleveland. I'm not saying that they're not talented to overcome it, because I do believe they are, but I take the known commodity and knowing what Pat Mahomes and that Kansas City Chiefs team is capable of. Baker Mayfield has only got 6 wins as a starting quarterback. Games that he started, he's only come up with 6 wins in that 1 year. We saw what Pat Mahomes did last year. He had 12 wins. His team was in the AFC Championship. So you got to give credit where credit is due. Right now, the Cleveland Browns are just potential. I know what the Kansas City Chiefs are when they're at their best.
Man, it's going to be fun to watch these two this season.
Blueface, baby.